Go right. Had a busy day today, so I'm kind of I'm trying to relax now. And you also gonna ask me all kind of questions, right?
That's
I
right.
hope I
That's right.
can, I hope I can dive in my memories and feel good about it.
Quite sure. I'm quite sure you will, man. All right. So let's go back to Sunday, February the 6th, would have been the Bob
Yeah,
Marley anniversary
yeah,
70
for Marley's birthday.
27.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
What memory that come to your mind with the first
tell
you
you
met
what,
when you flew there?
every day is a Bob Marley's birthday.
Is that
This is
right?
a man. This is a man to be cherished and loved because he gave us. He left an incredible legacy, and what he did with this, what 37 years? What is it? Was 37 or 38 when he passed away, and he left this incredible wealth of inspiration and music and poetry and he brought this little island Jamaica into the world, and is bigger than ever. So I found out that the director, there's going to be a movie uh, on Bob Marley, and the director is this great new director that directed King Richard, the story with Will Smith and Venus and Serena Williams.
Got you.
He did a fantastic job, considering that he really covered a lot the human side of that family, and so I hope he's gonna do the same thing with Bob Marley, and uh, and I'm sure that Bob Marley was one of us. He was a citizen of the world, although he told me that a white man couldn't be a Rastafarian. And I said to him, I don't know, man. There's a guy in London, a friend of mine, that looks exactly like you. And I was thinking about my nephew. My sister married a black guy from the West Indies, from Barbados. And the Bob Marley's father was from Liverpool.
Wow.
So, and you can see some of his features, and especially in profile, and so anyway, he laughed when I said that. But anyway, going back to I had an incredible time with him. He going flying to Jamaica to do an interview that my magazine had arranged. He was This was May 1980,
Yep.
and it happened probably 11 months before he passed away. And the Italian record company. At the time, I used to write for Sorrisis e Canzoni TV, and this was a magazine that was selling 2 million copies a week and had a readership of 10 million. And and at the time, I was on tour with Genesis. And when my magazine told me, you have to go to Jamaica, I thought, oh shit, because I had all my interviews lined up in Vancouver, in Seattle, and San Francisco, so I thought, well, I'm gonna go there, do the interview, and come back. But I was there for 3 days and 3 nights, and those 3 days and 3 nights are embedded in my memories cells, like one of the most incredible experiences that happened to me, because I felt like I parachuted into this incredible world of Jamaica, Kingston, Frenchtown, and I ended up doing the interview with Bob Marley at maybe 4 o'clock in the morning. I was dropped at this place, Tough Gong, actually. It was an island house in Hope Street in Kingston. I was dropped there at 8 o'clock in the evening, thinking that I'm gonna meet Bob Marley, gonna do the interview, and then maybe go back the following day to back to on tour with Genesis. I had a book to promote, and instead I landed in the world of Jamaican Rastafarian, and a total new world for me. And I was the only white man in the place, and I was really invisible in a way. I nobody wanted to. Everybody just acted like I wasn't there.
Wow.
So I and there was a film crew that were filming the rehearsal of the Wailers. Bob Marley and the Wailers were rehearsing for the tour. They had an upcoming tour in Europe, and I was there because there was a concert set up for Milan. Bob Marley, 1 month later, he was going to be playing at the San Siro Stadium, Inter Milan and AC Milan Stadium. And it was a full moon night, and he had 70,000 people. Unfortunately, I wasn't there because I was still on tour with Genesis promoting my damn book, And but people that were at that concert, they remember it like one of the most incredible concerts of their lives, And so when all the rehearsal happened, and when they called me up to go and meet the man, it was 4 o'clock in the morning. He just had some food, and someone passed him a beautiful joint, He lit up the joint, and he asked me the first question. He told me, "Do you like the Pope, man?" And I said, "No, man, And I tell you why, because I was raised as a Catholic. Of course, like in Italy, automatically you are probably 99.9% of Italian are, at least with my generation, were raised as Catholic and going to communion and Cresima and going to church every Sunday, sometime during the week, and all this Catholic. And but then I went because I was a little bit wild as a kid, So my parents put me in a boarding school after my elementary school. So I did my like a junior high between I was 12, 13, and 14 in a college ran by Salesian priests. And that was a traumatic experience because I was telling Bob, it's really they in a moment in your life when you are exploding into as a man, and they keep you. And he said, the problem, he interrupted me there, and he said, the problem, man, with the Catholic religion, that they keep you afraid of, they keep you busy thinking about hell, that you always forget to see the sky. And as he said that, and he raised his head, I looked up and I didn't see the ceiling of the room. I saw a sky full of stars. And of course, this was after probably 8 hours of rehearsal of the Wailers, and everybody has been participating to the burning of ganja. So I was pretty high, and in so much that when I asked Bob, said, I was so knocked out by the amount of smoke. They were smoking big pipes. There were everything. They were when they were exhaling. There was so much smoke coming out of their lungs. I said, how did they get it inside there? Anyway, it was a new experience, And I thought, oh my God, is this 4 o'clock in the morning? By the time I finished the interview, maybe it was 5, and and I thought, oh my God, my flight was in the evening, the following day, and I changed, of course. But I said, so I was hoping to get the pictures in the morning, in the daylight. So I said, smoking all this ganja, what type of ganja do you smoke? Because you must be, how much do you sleep? And he said, well, I sleep 3 hours, man. And there's only three types of ganja. There's the good, the very good, and the best. You should only smoke the best.
I see.
And so by that time, probably was 5 o'clock, 5:30, and I told him, so I challenged him about the 3 hours, I said, so if I come at 9 o'clock, we can take some pictures in the light in the Jamaican light, and he said, yeah, man. And that happened, it happened that I came back at 9 o'clock, and he was there at the doorway, and I have photographs. I have a photograph that we both looked very much wasted, and I passed him a copy of the book, and the Genesis book that I was promoting at the time. The book that I did again. I published myself because I didn't like the way the book came out in England. So I took a picture while he was leafing through the book. And I tell you, that photograph last year became a mural in the youth center of Kingston, of Trenchtown. In fact, I posted it on my Facebook page. There's a photograph of Bob reading the book, and an artist picked up these photographs and they made it into a mural, huge mural. And there's Julian and Ronan Marley. They are the two of his 11 sons that created this youth center. So, and that message was that Bob Marley reading a book. And that photograph that I took in May 1980, in 2021, became a great message, a great encouragement for the young teenagers, encouragement for the teenagers in Kingston, in Jamaica, to read books. Because the new generation, they are there with the iPhone and with the computer, and they forget about reading books. So the power of photography was really very, very good, So I left 2 days later, and I came back to Los Angeles because Genesis were playing the Roxy. They were playing a surprise gig at the Roxy on Saturday. So I landed in Jamaica on Wednesday morning, and I came back. I would say 3 days, 3 nights, and who's Bob? Who's Bob Marley? To me, he showed me this evening, or when we left. We talked a lot. When I took the pictures in the morning, we never said a word. And but that early morning, he told me beautiful things, like when I asked him about where does reggae music comes from, and I was thinking about shuk, and he told me, listen, and I didn't hear anything, I heard a motorcycle coming in the night, in early morning, early daylight. No, listen, and you hear the insects, and that's what's happening in these beautiful places in the Caribbean. When the sun goes down, when the sun comes up, there's these incredible insects crickets and everything. There's so much sound. And even if we were in Kingston, there were still trees and stuff. So that sound was, so that's the sound of the island, man.
Wow.
So, he made you discover things. He would just look at you straight in the eyes, like, don't listen, straight. And then when I told him I was going to be there only for 3 days, he said 3 days in Jamaica is like 3 hours, man. And next time, try to come back for 3 weeks. Try to come back on a full moon night with a woman you love. So the guy is a fucking romantic, right? So I rediscovered his music. Of course, I liked Stand Up for Your Rights, Exodus, and all. But then I discovered things like Three Little Birds, and Kaya, the album Kaya, which is my favorite. Of course, his last album, Uprising, which was the album that he was promoting on tour that summer. It's fantastic to me. It's like the 10 commandments of for the Jamaican people, and we coming in from the cold, spiritual cold, and then we get into this beautiful, sweet life, and work. Come on, it was that, because they don't like to work much, but work on Mondays, work Tuesdays, work, and there's great songs there, great messages. But Kaya is an album that he recorded when he fell in love with, can't remember her name, but she was Miss Universe, and she was Jamaican, and he had a beautiful story with her. So, and that's when he left Jamaica. He left Rita Marley in a way, and it opens up with them. My woman, she's gone. She couldn't take me anymore, so I would ask people to really rediscover Kaya, because it's a beautiful album that makes him one of the most incredible songwriters of the 20th century.
Oh, I agree, man.
Yeah.
What a story, man. What bring me more. You get very emotional talking about this stuff. Another big.
Absolutely, it really made me see life in a different way, and made me feel like smoking ganja, marijuana, is such a gift from God. It's a natural. That's why they call it grass, because it grows wild. It's really, and I believe that the peace pipe that the Indian was smoking with the white man whenever they made peace, and they were smoking marijuana probably,
Absolutely, man.
Anyway, it's not a nasty drug. It's something that should be treated in a very spiritual way. That's how. But I never smoked like they were smoking.
The best, the good stuff.
Yeah. Well, so now I treat that with food and wine. Why drinking any old wine? You should only drink the best, right?
I'm with you, man. I'm with you, man. You have a long lasting friendship with Mr. Peter Gabriel, and I mean, you guys know each other for 40 years, or if not more, man. And I want to bring you to the attention the fourth edition of We Shot the Monkey, and feel free to elaborate my question and open question, because you have so many memoirs, so many. You can write books and books.
I'm wanting contact.
Yeah.
I need contact.
I need contact.
That's what we need today, right? That's what we need this moment after 2 years of pandemic. In fact, 2 years ago, around this time, COVID exploded in Italy. There was a fashion week right now, around the 15th to the 20th of February. There was a fashion week in Milan, and there were 150 people from China they came to Fashion Week, and all of this, and they realized afterwards what happened, and probably that's how it started, or that's how they helped to. And Italy was really, really badly hit. And I was going to London. I was flying to London on the 26th, but I canceled that flight. I was going to go as a journalist. I was going on the set of The Crown, the TV series.
Yep.
And Gillian Anderson was playing Margaret Thatcher. And I know Gillian Anderson for 25 years when she was doing X-Files, And so I was really looking forward to see her on the set as Margaret Thatcher. Plus, I knew they were going to shoot some scene at the Lyceum. The Lyceum was the very first place where I saw Genesis.
Wow.
So it was really, but a series of situations, made me realize that this is insane to fly. Everybody, because from what was happening in Italy, it spread so quickly, killing people immediately, and so I didn't go, and I was supposed to meet Peter Gabriel the Saturday before going. I was gonna be on the set on a Monday. I was gonna see Peter on a Saturday, and I wanted to talk about a possible book, but so now we are 2 years later, and I really hope to go to England for the very last concert of Genesis, because in March 1972, I did the first photo shoot of Genesis. So it's like 50 years anniversary, And Genesis were going to Italy for their first tour in Italy. The records Nursery Crime was selling very well in Italy. They were number 4 in the charts. They got booked for 7 shows. They ended up doing, I think, 9 or 10, maybe even 11, and they found mass acceptance in Italy on that tour. That gave them an incredible push to really. In fact, in the book, I have, as Mike Rutherford says, Italy saved us because we thought we were off the ball in England. That album wasn't received very well in Nursery Crime. I don't know why, but that was it. So in Italy, they found mass acceptance in a way that at the Palace Sport in Reggio Emilia, there 2,000 people when they were used to play maybe to 100, 200, So, and they got really inspired by the Italian audience, because the Italian audience, they found out that they were actually, they were very silent. And then, but they would applaud the different dynamic of music, And so they realized that Tony Banks told me, I realized that we were doing something right. And in fact, Watchers of the Sky was written on the rooftop of an hotel in Naples. It was around 2:00 in the afternoon. And it was April 1972. And the band were getting a bit of Italian sunshine, and they looked down and the streets were deserted. And they thought they had this incredible idea that this Watcher of the Sky came down and the people were ran away, But I thought that they found this incredible meaning by seeing all the streets deserted. But as an Italian, I know, especially in Naples, that all the shops closes at 1:00 and everybody goes home, they have lunch, and then they go for a nap and they go back to work around 4 o'clock. So that period between 1 o'clock
1
and
to
4
4.
o'clock is all very quiet, you know. But it served the right purpose, you know. So
yeah, no, absolutely, man, what a story. I'm quite sure that we will do a separate program on.
yeah,
on,
and you talked about. I'm gonna do actually an hour on Genesis on a TV show, for a TV show on Monday for an Italian TV show. So anyway, maybe to celebrate the 50th anniversary. You were asking me about Shock the Monkey.
That's right, the 4 editions.
And that came from the Shock the Monkey album. It popped up. I'm wanting contact,
Yeah.
and in fact, I just collected maybe 1,000 slides of that tour. You know, that album, which was album 4, that in America, because every album was called Peter Gabriel, you know, that no titles. So he signed a new deal with Geffen Records, and Peter had it tough, because the third album, Atlantic didn't want it. They thought this is the album with Intruder, and they thought it wasn't commercial at all, you know. So that album was released with Mercury, and it was a hit. And so Atlantic wanted him back. They offered $1 million to get him back. And Peter said, no, I'm not. So Geffen Records came in, and maybe I know it was half the price, but they gave him total artistic freedom. So Peter chose the artistic freedom. And when the fourth album with Shock the Monkey happened, you know, Geffen Records said, okay, we do whatever you want. You did it, but please, can we have a title? Can we put, and they put a title, they put a sticker outside the album. The album was with cellophane, you know, and there was a sticker on the cellophane that said security. I don't know how that came out, but anyway, so once you take the cellophane out, everything disappears. So there's still Peter Gabriel, right? But so that album is known in America, at least, is known as Security, and that tour was the Security tour, and I shot 11 concerts of that tour, you know, and plus I was at the Sanremo Song Festival, the Italian Song Festival, where Peter was a special guest. And so we spent some time together in Italy. And then he, you know, I was getting a divorce. He was getting a separation from Jill. In fact, they broke up, you know, and at that time. So we were navigating, we were just two young men out in the woods, you know. So we had a good time, and he visited me in Los Angeles, and that's when I showed him all the photos that I shot a couple of months before in Los Angeles, and that's how the album cover of Plays Live came about, and so it was, and plus he opened up he played 2 shows in 2 stadiums. The very first time he played in a stadium was with David Bowie in Canada, in Edmonton and Vancouver, and the Tubes were opening up. So that's how I got him to meet David Bowie, because Peter had never met David Bowie, you know. But so I arranged for, when he came to Italy for the Sanremo Song Festival, he got a Telegato award, you know. And so I arranged for for him to be the last recipient of the award, would give to the new recipient to give the same award to David Bowie, you know, and that's in my Peter Gabriel's book. I see that you have my Peter Gabriel's book on
Right.
your on yeah, and so it was an incredible time. I think with that tour that lasted 12 months, I think that Peter exploded into a legitimate rock star. You know, he was like, that's the tour when he used to fly into the audience, and the audience used to keep him in the famous dive, you know. In fact, that book, and in the end, it opens up with that dive. That dive was shot in Seattle, I think.
Yeah. Man.
So and that's another anniversary, because in September 10, 1982, which is 40 years this year, is the 40th anniversary of the release of album 4, and I really hope, I already suggested to Real World, you know, would be nicer if I Have the Touch could be re-released as a single. And I Have the Touch is the shake my hands. People don't shake hands anymore. I need contact, wanting contact, I need contact, you know, and that's a message that is very much needed today, because we haven't been touching each other for 2 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Create a lot of problems. I was reading the other day that babies developed their brains and their intelligence better if they get hugged a lot, if they get in contact with the mother or the father, you know. But when they have contact with other humans, you know, and I don't think that stops after that, you know. I think that stays forever, you know, and we do need hugs and touching, and something very nasty happened the past 2 years that left us with a lot of doubts and a bit of a trauma as well.
That's right. Well, we are very lucky that we are alive, Armando. We're talking about music and life, and so 1 million people here in the United States couldn't say the same thing, you know. How many, and people over the world. Look at them. There are some cities and counties in Italy that they disappear, they wipe out.
Today I got a message from my good friend Jack Bierman. He's a big, huge Genesis fan. He's a lawyer. He teaches at the Boston University and Harvard, and big Genesis fan. And I went to see Steve Hackett with him in Iceland, something like 6 years ago, and he had spent some summers in Iceland, Jack, working in a farm. So we went to see this guy that he called Grandpa, you know, and this guy was 94, 95, you know, and I just found out that a few months before his 100th birthday, he passed away with COVID.
Oh my!
That's sad, isn't it?
Very sad, man. Yeah.
Yeah, and
yeah.
so.
Man, you have so many stories. I should write 10 books about you, man. Instead of you writing books, I should write. I want to bring you attention
because I don't like writing anymore. It's too solitary, you know.
Yeah.
I wrote so much in my life, you know,
as a
journalist. And now, you know, you have to. It takes me longer to write, because especially to spend. I'm 78, right? And what are you gonna do in the next 10 years if I'm lucky to be alive for 10 years? You know, what are you gonna do? Spend your time writing? You know, people say writing, but it's such a solitary activity, job, you know. And
yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I want to bring your attention to another band that I really like. It's Sex Pistols. I wonder if you can remember the January '77, the last concert. Feel free to elaborate on that because that was it was a very important concert.
Tell me, sorry, Claudia, I didn't understand.
For Sex Pistol,
Oh, the Sex Pistol.
the
Yes,
'77,
Sex
the last
Pistol.
concert. I know that.
Yeah, you know,
bring a lot of memories.
I didn't like punk rock. You know, I left England in 1975 because there was something was gonna be happening. In fact, punk happened. So there was this incredible emergence of, after the Beatles. Once the Beatles split up, okay, there was an incredible void in London. But there were so many young bands that got together, inspired by the Beatles. So there was an incredible musical renaissance in 69, 70, and so. And that's how progressive music happened as well, and the big bands and the singer-songwriter. And the early 70s, we're talking about Deep Purple and King Crimson and the Yardbirds and the Led Zeppelin and Yes, Gentle Giant, Genesis, Van der Graaf Generator, and so on and on. And that exploded. But then because it was new, it was something new. There were many bands that just recorded one album and then disappeared because they didn't have management. They only had a little agent that booked them for gigs. So when the record companies started realizing all that and making a lot of money, Rockstar became very rich, and they started buying mansions in Surrey. There was the rock and roll belt, they call it. There was this county south of London, and lots of these rock bands, they just kind of deflated themselves in a way, and so there was the new young kids in 76, 77, they started going against all this establishment of rock stars, and they started, and that's how punk happened, being outrageous, and but at the same time, see, in 77, I was writing the Genesis book in Los Angeles, because when I moved to Los Angeles and I started working as a journalist, with looking for movie stars, and I would be on the set of movies and interviewing movie stars, and I thought that I had to make the grade. I've been writing for a rock and roll magazine, and now I was 30, 31, 32, and I thought, oh, I have to get a real job here, So I climbed all the way to the top magazine in Italy, and I became the Los Angeles Hollywood correspondent, So at that point, I thought that I should really write a book about my experience in England, and I ended up writing the Genesis book because Peter Gabriel left the band. During my first summer in Los Angeles, I found out that Peter left the band, and I couldn't believe it because this is a good story. In April 1975, when I left London, at the Savoy Hotel, Genesis were getting the gold album for selling England by the pound. They were doing the very few dates of The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, and they got a special gold album for selling England by the pound. There was a big party there. and I told them, I was telling everybody next week I'm going to moving to Los Angeles, and Phil Collins told me, oh, I, I- I'm telling you something because I don't want you to hear it from somebody else, but I'm getting a band. I'm getting a band together. So I thought he was leaving Genesis, right? I assume it. So when I heard that Peter Gabriel left Genesis, to the friend that told me that, I said, no, no, you got it wrong, man. Phil Collins left the band. He told me that. But actually, Phil Collins was getting a band together. He was getting Brand X together.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Because at that time, even the band themselves, probably they thought that Peter's going to leave the band. What we going to do now? So uh, Phil straight away got Brand X together, and Mike and Tony went on a promo tour in in Germany, and nobody wanted to do interview with them. And at the same time, Steve Hackett did Voyage on the Acolyte, So, and that sold really, really well, 250,000 copies. So that helped the band to get together, the four of them. That's how the story goes. But in the meantime, in 1976, Peter, after he took 1 year off, and he was really trying to figure out what he wanted to do, and he came to America trying to get a publishing deal. And considering that he needed some finance to do a solo album, right? And so he thought that by getting an advance from a publishing company, he would finance his solo album. When he came to Los Angeles, after dinner at my house, we asked him, can we go down Hollywood Boulevard, Sunset Boulevard, and take some pictures, some night pictures? And that's when he told me that. I asked him how the business was going. Did you get a deal? Did you get? And he told me, oh, it's a little bit difficult because they don't believe. I had to prove myself because the band had released Trick of a Tail.
That's right.
That went really well. So the publisher thought, oh, maybe Peter Gabriel is not the main writer of the band. I wonder. Look at so why should I pay a lot of money for this guy? Maybe because the band at the last during the Lamb Lies Down on Broadway tour, they were known as Peter Gabriel and Genesis, right? So at that point, I thought, fuck, I have to tell this story, because it was a very I felt it in my guts that if people didn't believe how strong Peter was, what an incredible talent he was, I should write the story otherwise of Genesis with Peter Gabriel. Otherwise, it would have been lost, That's when I wrote the book from Christmas 19. Yeah, sorry, it's from and so when the Sex Pistols came to play their very last concert on the West Coast, it was at the Winterland, San Francisco, January 78, probably, and so I had to go and see them, and very happy that was going to be the last show, and there were. I can only judge them from that show. The audience was better than them.
Yeah. Well,
Everybody was so excited about being there and seeing the Sex Pistols. Sid Vicious was a hit someone with his bass. He hit one of the crowd. He fell on the floor. He was all cut, and so I was shooting the pictures from behind the stage. So the crowd is very tight, like sardines, and So anyway, so I never really listened to them but then 20 years later, I met uh, the singer. Help me out.
I forgot the name, man. I know,
Oh,
I know.
okay. Okay. And so he was very clever. He was very intelligent and
Yeah.
very he knew exactly what he did, you know. And so, but very, you know, they were nasty little kids.
What about, it's a band that I really like and they split out and well, Roger Hudson is still doing his own thing. The other guys went underground. They're not doing much. Supertramp. What
Oh,
memory do you have? It's a band
Super
that I really like it.
Superman was an excellent band, you know, and Crime of the Century was a beautiful album, you know, and it was so funny because at that time, we're talking about now 72, 73, and 74. I used to, uh, you know, I was very young and I was full of energy, you know, and so I was doing a lot of things, you know, I was writing, taking pictures, you know, and I was doing the PR in London for PFM, Premiata Foneria Marconi, and then I was booking bands that needed to play. I was booking bands for Italian tours, and I had a very good friend, Enrico Rovelli, who was a promoter in Italy, and he had a good club, a good place in Milan where bands would go through there. So it said the band can come over here and then we can get them to play 5 or 6 concerts in a week around Italy, you know. And so it was very, uh, it was, you know, of course, the success of Genesis and Van der Graaf's Generator were #1 in Italy, and they were bigger than Genesis in 72. And so the echo of this, you know, they realized English band, English agent, they realized they could go to Italy and make some money as well, you know, because if you are at the time, 72, 73, bands would just play maybe a couple of gigs a week, you know, but if you go on a tour in Italy, maybe you play 7 concerts in one day, in 1 week, you know, or sometimes even 9 concerts because you play afternoon and evening, you know. And so I used to, Supertramp was one of the bands that I booked for Italy, and I got it offered for £20 a night because the band were needed, they were on Chrysalis agency, uh, but and they needed to play because they wanted to get their song very tight before recording them. So somehow what happened, you know, I couldn't get them anymore. In fact, then I found out the Supertramp went to A&M Records. So maybe Chrysalis lost them, you know. And but I got so close to take Supertramp on a tour in Italy for £20 a night, you know. And I did that for Camel, the band Camel, and uh, Arthur Brown, Ground Dogs, Head, Hands and Feet. There was a great fusion band called If. And then I took the Charisma Festival in Italy as well. There was Lindisfarne, uh, Genesis, Capability Brown, and Peter Hamill. Peter Hamill has broke up the band Van der Graaf Generator, you know. He saw they were very successful in Italy and they saw what success can do to individuals. So he broke the band, he split the band when the band was #1 in Italy because he didn't like what the band was doing to some of them, you know. And that's when he did Chameleon in the Shadow of the Night, recorded in 4-track. And I took him to Italy to open for a tour of an Italian band called Le Orme, so he could he could see how he would be as a solo artist. And he was very courageous because Le Orme were an Italian band that were #1 in Italy with the album Collage, and then they did another album, Gioco di Bimba, and they were very, very big. So they have these huge theaters, and but they were a trio like ELP, you know. So, and to have Peter Hamill with the guitar who wasn't, you know, people didn't want him on stage, you know, but he ended up becoming very good friends with the band, and they wrote an album, uh, and Peter Hamill wrote the English lyrics, and the album was recorded at Trident Studio, and it was the only release in England of Le Orme. The album was called Felona and Sorona. Yeah, and but anyway, the best thing that I did during my years as a promoter, journalist, tour manager, whatever, you know, it was I in '73 we took we convinced John Coletta, who was the manager of Deep Purple, to go to Italy and play in front of 15,000 people. I said, oh, how can you guarantee me that? Because we're gonna do the tickets at 1,000 lira a ticket, which was like $1 a ticket, because you know, there were lots of riots in Italy. People wanted to have free music. There were they didn't want to pay 3,000, 4,000 lira, you know, and so and I used to talk to these kids, you know, and I used to write about them, you know, and one of them said, you know, because I said these people have expenses. There are people coming from. They had problem with Chicago. They had problem with Grand Funk Railroad. You know, these people coming from America. You know, you want them to play for free. You know, and so well, you know, we should pay no more than going to the movies. You know, the ticket for a movie was 1,000 lira. You know,
Yeah.
And so we did the tickets 1,000 lira, and the band was played in Naples, in Rome, and Genoa, and they had huge crowds, you know. So that was a great experience. Oh, I forgot about I forgot about Pink Floyd.
Yeah. Wow. But you did very good money for yourself too, right? As a
Yeah,
tour manager, yeah, you got
yeah, and yes,
for you, man. Good for you.
I was very lucky that I had a very good friend that shared the profit with me, you know, which was fantastic. That doesn't happen very often in life, you know.
That's right. Yeah. Wow. Rolling Stone. Man, I know it brings you very good memory for you, man.
Well, Rolling Stones, forget about the Rolling Stones, man, because I grew up with the Beatles.
Yeah.
I fell in love with the Beatles.
Yeah.
I went to England in 1963 the first time. And my English girlfriend was crazy about the Beatles, you know. So I wanted to get an autograph. She was I liked Paul McCartney. She liked Ringo Starr. So I managed to get, in the end, I managed to get the autograph from Paul McCartney and the autograph from Ringo Starr. But we broken up maybe 2 months before. But going back to that, you know, how you become a journalist. I was chasing Ringo Starr's autograph, and so a series of situations. This is the power of being in love with a woman, you know, makes you do crazy things, you know. So how do I get to the Beatles? How do I get to the Beatles? And then one morning going to work, I was working for, I got my degree as an architectural designer, land surveyor, So when I moved to London in 19, we already talked about this.
A little bit, yeah, perfect.
Yeah. So I was working for Chamberlain Parking System. Did we talk about the Beatles on the last time?
No, we did not.
So how do I get to how do I get to the Beatles? So a series of situations made me write for an Italian magazine, the magazine that I used to read in Italy. And I did an article, an interviews, photos and story of an Italian pop singer called Rita Pavone. And with that, she was in England because she had a hit in England. And so it was February 67. And with that magazine, I went to EMI Records and I was telling, I want to meet with the Beatles. I want interview with the Beatles. I must have been very funny, 22, And so I made friends with the international department, and Jim Watson was a guy that was helping me out. He was trying to get me all these bands, to see and to write about them in Italy. And then one day he just called me up, can you get out? Can you get out? He knew that I was working. So I got to Manchester Square, EMI Records, and he said, oh, you're late. So we drove to Belgravia, where the Beatles were, there was a press party with the English press and disc jockey, and so he smuggled me in, and in fact, when we arrived there, the Beatles were outside being photographed by all these photographers. What had happened is, they asked them to come downstairs and take some pictures outside. So instead of taking pictures in a room, in fact, and so I wrote an article, maybe it was my fourth article for this Italian magazine, and I wrote the exclusive preview of Sgt. Pepper, which came out. I remember sending the cover of the album, And recently, I got this magazine. I got this article, and so I'm very curious to see what I wrote. And I'm reading there, and I said, and I'm describing the album cover. And I said, why am I talking about it? Because, and hopefully you will see it in Italy also in a couple of months. That's how things were happening at the time, Things were moving much, much slower than now, So that's how I became a journalist. At that point, I felt really confident, and the autograph that I got from Paul and Ringo was in November. When I met them they were editing Magical Mystery Tour, the film, and so there you go.
There you go, man.
But you asked me about the Stones. So I was so much in love with the Beatles that I didn't care about the Stones, but I appreciate them later on, of course, but I was never really crazy. Probably the first album that I got was Sticky Fingers.
But I know you like Frank Zappa, and you were, very good friends with him as well, So
Frank Zappa was was another great genius that was a very big influence in my career as a appreciator of creativity, And when I moved to Los Angeles in '75, one of the first people that I wanted to meet was Frank Zappa. And because when he came through London, there was never time for me, being a foreign journalist, to do, because he would do the British press, and so the very first thing that I did when I moved to Los Angeles was to call up the record company, the publicist, the press agent, and I got the interview straight away. I remember calling the guy around maybe 2 o'clock in the afternoon. He called me back and said, "You can go and see. You can have an interview with Frank tonight at 10 o'clock. This is his address." And it was Woodrow Wilson Drive, and it was the house that recently has been sold to Lady Gaga. And of course, Frank passed away in 1993, and Gail, his wife, passed away a few years ago, and the kids. So the house was sold, part of his estate, that share with the. Anyway, I went to see him that night. I rang the bell. He opened the door, and it was, the house was on a hill, so the house was up, and underneath there was the garage, and the door by the garage, and there was his studio, and the studio was a mess, was just not a mess. It was a work in progress in a way. That's what there were, writing, music everywhere, but there was an incredible archive of old tapes, and we started doing the interview, and we were talking mostly about how Italy was, and then we started talking about classic, contemporary classic music. He loved Varese, and he loved Stockhausen, and so. I had a very good friend in Italy called Franco Battiato that was into this stuff, and so we had a great conversation, and then I asked him, when you played the Royal Albert Hall, I said, the second number was an incredible, and he said, he got up, he picked up the tape, and he put the tape on. He played me the concert.
Wow!
And then while I was listening, he went to the kitchen, or whatever he went, and he brought a bottle of Barolo 1967. We are in 1975, 1967. It's not that old, but Barolo 1967 is one of the best years for Barolo, and to cut a long story short, I drank the entire bottle by myself because he didn't drink. He drank coffee and smoked Winston cigarettes, and he had this incredible low voice. And he told me, you should meet Captain Beefheart. And he hooked me up with Captain Beefheart, and Captain Beefheart wanted me to be in his band. I said, I can't play an instrument. You can play the tambourine. Probably at the time, with long hair and mustache, probably I looked maybe Captain Beefheart's cousin or whatever, And so I had a fantastic time with Frank. We hooked up very well. In fact, I found a place when I moved to Los Angeles. I was living in Manhattan Beach, which was really an incredible place to spend your first Californian summer. And then I moved back into town. I found a little house just across the street from Frank. And so we were neighbors for a few months, until I found another place. But anyway, he used to call me, Armando, we like to come and hear some tapes. And but he was such a great person with me, and when I left Los Angeles in 1984, and I was going around the world, because I became a publisher in Italy. I was publishing rock books, biography of various movies, uh, rock stars. So I used to travel a lot with bands, and but every time that I landed in Los Angeles, it was like coming home. And one of the first people I would call would be Frank. Say, hi,
Really?
so it's Armando, come over. He wouldn't say anything, just come over. And so I felt very sad when he passed away. I couldn't believe it. I didn't believe that he he was sick. It couldn't be. He was about 52, 54, and he died of prostate cancer.
Very young, very young. Yeah.
Yeah, very young, and I remember that Warren Cucurulo, who was Warren was a young guitarist from New Jersey. He knew everything about Frank Zappa, so he became good friends, and Frank helped him a lot to make it. And so Franco Curulo in 1992, he was with Duran Duran. In fact, Duran Duran they made it very big, and then they kind of disappeared. Warren Cucurulo came in the band, and he kind of rearranged revived all their songs. So he was on tour with Duran Duran, and I remember Duran Duran was shooting a video in Santa Monica airport in a hangar, big, and Julian Temple was the director, and Warren said, I have to go and see Frank, because and that was the last time that Warren saw Frank, and I felt really bad that I didn't go with him, but I didn't want to believe that he was dying. That happens, but and a year later, another great friend passed away as well. Jeff Porcaro, the
Toto, yeah.
drama extraordinaire, the drama of Toto, and Steely Dan, and and Jeff was also a beautiful spirit, with Jeff, I did some recording, and the best one was he accepted to do an album of old rock and roll by an Italian singer-songwriter, Ricky Gianco, and I knew if I would get Jeff to commit to do this album, all the other people would come, and we recorded this album called It's Rock and Roll, in 3 days live with Jeff at the on drums, and there was Taro Powers. We had the engineer was the sound engineer was the guy that did the entire tour of Pink Floyd in 1987, 88. And so we had an incredible amount of people, and Ricky Gianco was called Ricky because his name was really Riccardo, but he called himself Ricky because he loved Ricky Nelson, And so when Jeff found out that, I told Jeff, and he made us a surprise, gave us a surprise. He got James Burton, because Ricky Nelson wasn't the guitarist. But there was a guitarist called James Burton, and he got James Burton to come to the recording, beautiful things like this. And also Jeff was fantastic because anything I needed, if I had his phone number, and I said, call me. You can call me anytime between 10:30, 11 o'clock. This is the time when I wake up. I'm drinking my coffee, so it's the best time to find me, And he was wonderful. He was really, In fact, between his passing and Frank passing, I stopped going to rock concerts.
Really?
Yeah, and at least, I
At the time, yeah.
and I devoted myself to Hollywood movies and television, and so I I I went full time also because I was one of the voting members of the Golden Globe, and the Golden Globe was becoming very, very popular, and that's what I've been doing the past 30 years. Of course, I saw the odd concert, and of course, U2 and Peter Gabriel, yes, and in fact, in 1992, I did a video clip of one of U2 songs, even better than the real thing from Actoon Baby. I produced it and was the director, and that is it is in a collection, the Actoon Baby video collection, and so that was in a way, my goodbye to rock and roll in a way, although in 2001, I flew to Mexico City because Peter Gabriel was starting the tour there, the tour for what was it, the tour with his last album that he did, anyway, Growing Up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
hopefully I will convince you to go to London with me in mid-March.
we'll see, we'll see. And I'm trying to, I would like to, maybe things we're gonna work out, would be wonderful, because I have this 2,000 pictures, they're all in color slides of the security tour, and I would like to go to real world and show and work on these photographs with the art director there, maybe convince real world to do a book celebrating the 40th anniversary of security. So if that happens, it would be nice to springtime is the 21st of March, right? So it would be nice to celebrate springtime by going to real world and then catching up the last.
Yeah, I heard that the Real World Studios, the Real World Studios is a very nice place.
It's on the 26th of March, so it might be happening.
Yeah, and I heard that Real World Studios is a very, very nice place. It's a beautiful studio. Never been there.
Beautiful place.
I would like to visit that. What memories do you have? I don't know what your collaboration with Kate Bush.
Oh
man, when you say that.
let me sit up here. Well, Kate Bush is just Kate Bush is another very, very special talent, and of course, how can you not fall in love with Kate Bush,
Of course.
And I had a beautiful, lucky coincidence to meet her when she came to Italy for a television show. In the 80s, the record companies in England, in Italy, to promote foreign artists, they always used to organize this 3 days festivals, television festival. And there was this television festival called Riva del Garda. Garda is a lake. Lake Garda is on the in north of Italy, at the foothill of the Alps, between Milan and Venice, and beautiful setting for. And there were a lot of people there playing, and so I went there, and by surprise I found that Kate Bush was there too, and So the I was staying at the same hotel, and there was this guy, this friend from EMI Records, said, hello, what are you doing? Oh, I'm waiting for Kate Bush, that she has to go to the rehearsal. My God, Kate Bush is here. So she came down, and he introduced me to her. This is Armando Gallo, he's a journalist. And Kate Bush just, she was looking down, and then she looked up and she goes, I really love the tiny little voice. I really love the photo you took of Peter with a star in his eyes, And she's talking about one of the photographs I took of Peter Gabriel, that she just picked up when one particular photo. Peter was playing with these contact lenses, that were kind of, that if you shine some light and then you put a filter, you have a star in his eye, So it was in January 1978, 79, probably 79, yeah. And we went outside, was maybe 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and we put the headlight of his car, and we took some pictures, So he had the headlight of his car going on his face, and I took this photograph, and she just picked up this particular picture to tell me how lovely that she knew my work, So I went to the rehearsal, and then on the way back, because I want the album, The Dreaming, was out. She was coming over, and she was gonna do The Dreaming, the track The Dreaming. She had 2 dancers, all painted, And so I said, I would like to do an interview with you, running track by track. You can, and so that's what we did. And the way we did it, we went to a room, and there was this beautiful room with a beautiful king-size bed, and she laid across the bed, and she just went, come here, just patting the bed, So I'm there laying across the bed with Kate Bush, and the tape recorders between my face and their face, And that's how she told me everything about The Dreaming. And I wrote that for an Italian magazine called Tutto, and I would like to get, now that I'm talking to you, I would like to get hold of that copy, because she explained everything, And if you remember, I told you at the time I just got divorced. I was married to an English woman called Barbara Woods. Beautiful time, but we went apart after we were together for 9 years. Then we grew apart. And so I was still hurting. And there was one particular song that she wrote. The first time I died, it was in the good hands of a friend of mine. And so I was asking about that, and she was telling me about how hurtful is when you break up with someone, And it's always, but if you have a friend that picks you up, it's really fantastic, And so I remember that I was on if you can imagine, maybe 45 minutes later, we're talking about one track at a time, And I'm there, yeah. And I thought, oh my God, what should I do? Shall I kiss her after? Shall I kiss after the track together? What am I going to do? After the end of the last track, and we got to the end of the last track, and there's at the door, and someone entered. It was the tour manager. He came in and said, "Hey, Kate, you have the photo session. We're half an hour late." So she had a photo session with my good friend Guido Harari, and so she had to do the makeup. The same makeup that she had on the album cover. And the makeup artist came over, and we went on the balcony so she could be in the open air, you know. And I took a roll of pictures of what she was being made up, you know. And I can say that she wouldn't mind, you know. So she's a pot smoker, you know. And apparently she had asked the whoever took her to Italy, the record company, to have that she needed some black, and they thought it was black wine, red wine, you know. Instead, she was looking for some black to smoke, and the record company didn't have it. So I said, "Oh, you can have mine," you know. So I had in my pocket I had something to smoke. So she was very grateful for that. Very
Man,
grateful.
you have so many memories.
And with that, with Kate Bush, we're gonna close for the day.
Good for you. Yeah, that's good. My God, man, I'm very thankful to you, Armando. You have so many memories. You have so many stories. We can talk for hours and
Tell you
hours
what,
and hours.
I met her again when she did Running Up the Hill.
Yeah.
And, no, Hounds of Love. Hounds of Love. Okay, I met her. We had the manager told me she's gonna be in the recording studio 11 o'clock. Blah blah blah. It was near Shepherd's Bush, and she was doing the cutting of cloud busting. There was a video there with God, an actor, very famous actor. I can't remember his name, from Canada. And anyway, there was this great video, and she was doing the cutting for the new single. The cutting means that I don't know what it is, because I should have found out then. But it was we went straight into the room. They were doing the cutting of this particular single, and she rolled up a joint and she lit it up, and then she passed it over to me. She said, "Is it too late? Is it too early for you?" I said, no. And I had a couple of hits, man. I was. That's why I don't remember. She was smoking some powerful stuff, man.
Yeah. Well, Armando, thank you very much again, man.
I love you.
I love you too, man. Thank you very much again, man. And we'll reach out.
Hey, Claudio, nice talking to you. And I'll if you come to LA, just give me a call. I'm gonna tell you, come over.
I know, Frank Zappa style.
All righty.
All right, take it easy. Thank you. Have a good night, man. Thank you very much.
Stay out of trouble, man.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Bye.